In times of classical Persia, there was four great empires that ruled Western Asia. They were the Achaemenid, Seleucid, Parthian, and Sassanid empires. Cyrus the Great was the founder of the Achaemenid Empire. He became king of Persian tribes in 558 BC, and in 548 BC, all of Iran was under his control. His empire reached from India to the borders of Egypt. By 486 BCE, the Achaemenid Empire had reached its largest extent with a population of 35 million inhabitants and 70 different ethnic groups, all under the Emperor Darius. The Achaemenid administration consisted of 23 Persian governors called satrapies that were selected by the central government. Their power was overseen by military officers and imperial spies. Eventually, formal taxes replaced irregular tribute. To communicate, they used the Persian royal roads and postal stations. The decline began with the reign of Xerxes, who reigned from 486 BCE to 465 BCE. Emperor Xerxes disregarded the policy of cultural toleration. His actions caused great animosity towards him and eventually led to rebellions amongst the Mesopotamian peoples and the Egyptians. This eventually led to the Persian Wars, which lasted from 500 BCE to 479 BCE. 145 years later, to be exact. In 334 BCE, Alexander of Macedon conducted the invasion of Persia that was followed by the Battle of Gaugamela in 331 BCE, where he was victorious. To top it off, he burned down the Persian capital of Persepolis, ending the empire for good. After Alexander died at the age of 32, Seleucus inherited most of the empire. He kept the traditional Achaemenid system of administration, but he faced opposition from native Persians and lost control over northern India and Iran. This empire reached from Mesopotamia to Iran. Their cavalry was their greatest military strength. Mithridates I greatly expanded the empire by conquering lands from 171 BCE to 155 BCE. Their government was heavily influenced by the Achaemenid administration. The Sassanid Empire toppled the Parthians and ruled from 224 CE to 651 CE. Their crops were imported by merchants from India and China. In 651 CE, their empire was added into the Islamic Empire. The interaction of early societies was the first step into global advancement because it gave way to new ideas, resources, and communication. One of the reasons that Europe set out to explore new lands was because of the lack of resources. One country in particular was Portugal, who from the 13th century to the 15th century set out to explore the Atlantic Ocean. They discovered Atlantic islands and initiated sugar plantations for financial gain. Some major motivations for exploration were the Asian spice trade, African gold, ivory, and slaves. New technology enabled European mariners to expand their horizons. Some examples were the stern post rudder and two new types of sails that helped ships to press on against the wind. New inventions like the magnetic compass and the astrolabe helped them navigate through the sea. Knowledge of the winds and currents helped ships navigate safely throughout the seasons. King Enrique of Portugal encouraged travel to the west in search of land and resources. By 1415, Portugal had started conquering lands in Africa and set up trading posts along the West African coast. In 1497, Vasco da Gama of Portugal reached India after crossing the Indian Ocean and brought back an abundant amount of spices, which provided him with a considerable amount of wealth. Mariner Christopher Columbus was sponsored by the Catholic King and Queen of Spain to sail to Asian markets using a western route. He sailed to the Bahamas in 1492. The biggest significance of his travels allowed other mariners to connect to the Western Hemisphere. Other important explorers included Ferdinand Magellan, who navigated around the world from 1519 to 1522, and the British explorer James Cook, who traveled the Pacific and in the late 1700s provided a nearly precise geographical knowledge of the Earth. Alfonso de Albuquerque was a Portuguese commander who took the lands of Ormuz in 1508, Goa in 1510, and Malacca in 1511. He forced the purchase of safe conduct passes onto merchant ships. During this time, Portugal achieved the establishment of over 50 trading posts between West Africa and East Asia. Eventually, the English were able to sail faster, cheaper, and more powerful ships than the Portuguese. They established an association and business enterprise with transferable stock called the Joint Stock Company. Two of these companies were the English East India Company, which was founded in 1600, and the United East India Company, which was a Dutch company founded in 1602. These companies were private and were rarely supervised, while they benefited from government support. Crops originating from the Americas, such as maize, potatoes, and peppers, were introduced to the Eastern Hemisphere. Animals like the horse, cow, sheep, goat, and chicken were brought to the Americas from Europe. Along with crops and animals, new diseases were introduced to the Americas. Diseases like the smallpox, measles, and the flu caused a sharp decrease in the indigenous people of the Americas. In 1 century, 100 million people had perished because of foreign diseases. The Western Hemisphere also witnessed a rush of human migration of many European settlers, but the group of African slaves that was brought over from the 16th century to the 17th century was the largest. The roots of transoceanic trade came from the establishment of a global trading system that linked old and new worlds alike.